When a compassionate elementary school teacher notices a new student, Lily, perpetually hidden beneath a large, deep blue hoodie. It is a detail that initially blends into the classroom's daily hum of scraped chairs and rustling papers. Day after day, the hoodie remained, a silent, unwavering barrier the child refused to lower, creating an aura of deep mystery and quiet, pervasive concern around her small, hunched frame. This unwavering insistence, coupled with a profound, haunted sadness in her young eyes whenever they briefly met hers, signaled something far deeper and more troubling than simple shyness or a quirky fashion choice. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you believe every teacher has the power to make a profound difference, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. For weeks, the teacher, Ms. Anna Holloway, observed this silent, persistent ritual, a small, dark question mark in her bright, bustling third-grade classroom, until one fateful afternoon, driven by a rapidly escalating unease and a motherly instinct she couldn't ignore, she gently reached for the edge of the hood and pulled it back, freezing in utter shock as the horrifying truth hidden beneath was starkly revealed, changing everything in an instant. Anna had been teaching at Oakhaven Elementary for over a decade, a woman whose warmth was as much a fixture in her classroom as the colorful alphabet posters and shelves brimming with well-loved books. Her small, sunlit cottage on the edge of town, filled with the scent of baking and the quiet company of her tabby cat, Jasper, was her sanctuary, a peaceful counterpoint to the vibrant energy of her young students. She had a particular empathy for the quiet ones, the children who seemed to carry unseen burdens. But nothing could prepare Anna Holloway for the chilling reality she was about to confront, a reality concealed by a simple piece of fabric and a little girl's desperate silence. Anna Holloway was a woman whose life was woven into the fabric of Oakhaven Elementary. In her late 30s, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled and a gentle voice that could soothe the most boisterous child, she was more than just an educator. She was a confidant, a cheerleader, and sometimes a fierce protector. Her own childhood hadn't been entirely without shadows, leaving her with a keen sensitivity to the unspoken pains of others, especially children. The quiet hum of her empty house after school hours sometimes echoed with a faint loneliness, a space she often filled by grading papers late into the evening or planning creative new lessons. Lily, the new girl, had arrived 3 weeks into the fall semester, a small, pale child with enormous, dark eyes that rarely lifted from the floor. The hoodie, several sizes too large for her diminutive frame, was her constant companion, its drawstrings often pulled tight, obscuring most of her face. Her main ally within the school was Mrs. Peterson, the school counselor, a woman with a pragmatic approach and a network of resources. Anna had already mentioned Lily to her in passing, a preliminary note of concern. "Just keep an eye on her, Anna," Mrs. Peterson had advised, her brow furrowed. "New student adjustments can be tough. Let's give it a little time, but document anything specific." The antagonist, in this unfolding drama, was as yet unseen, an unknown variable. Lily had been enrolled by a woman identifying herself as her aunt, a gaunt, harried individual named Ms. Jenkins, who had rushed through the paperwork, offered minimal information, and exuded an air of impatience and barely concealed agitation. Anna had only seen her that one time. There were no rumors, no whispers about Lily's home life, just a blank space where a child's history should be, a void that felt increasingly ominous. One rainy Tuesday morning, during drop-off, Anna caught a glimpse of Miss Jenkins again. She was maneuvering a battered old car to the curb, and Anna saw her turn and hiss something at Lily in the passenger seat. Lily, already swamped by the hoodie, seemed to shrink even further into herself, her small hand flying up to clutch the hood tighter around her face. Ms. Jenkins then practically pushed Lily out of the car, not even waiting to see her enter the school building before speeding off with a screech of tires. The brief, harsh interaction was over in seconds, but it left Anna with a cold, metallic taste of fear in her mouth. Ms. Jenkins' face, in that fleeting moment, had been a mask of cold anger, a stark contrast to the hurried, stressed demeanor she'd presented at enrollment. It was a subtle crack, but a deeply disturbing one. Oakhaven Elementary, with its cheerful yellow hallways and the scent of crayons and paste, prided itself on being a nurturing environment. Yet, Lily's presence, her silent suffering cocooned within that hoodie, cast a small, persistent shadow. Anna tried various gentle approaches to engage her. "Lily, would you like to hang your hoodie on your hook? It's quite warm in here," she'd offered, her voice soft. A tiny, almost imperceptible shake of the head from beneath the fabric was the only reply. During art class, when other children eagerly smeared paint or molded clay, Lily would sit with her hands hidden in her sleeves, her project untouched. Anna noticed, with a growing ache in her chest, that Lily never ate the school lunch provided, nor did she ever bring one from home. These small, cumulative observations began to paint a grim picture, hinting at a neglect that went beyond mere shyness or adjustment difficulties. The stakes, Anna felt, were rising with each passing day, each unanswered question about the little girl lost inside the blue fleece. The weeks passed, and Anna's concern for Lily deepened into a pervasive anxiety. The hoodie remained an impenetrable fortress. Other children, with their innocent curiosity, had initially asked Lily why she always wore it. "Are you cold? Is it your favorite?" Lily never answered, simply pulling the drawstrings tighter, her small body tensing. Eventually, the questions stopped, and Lily became an accepted, albeit enigmatic, fixture in the classroom's social landscape, a silent island in a sea of chatter and laughter. Anna documented everything. Lily's refusal to remove the hoodie, her lack of participation, her avoidance of eye contact, the rare, fleeting glimpses of Miss Jenkins. She shared these notes with Mrs. Peterson, whose initial optimism was also beginning to fade, replaced by a shared, somber concern. One afternoon, during quiet reading time, a small incident occurred that sharpened Anna's unease to a razor's edge. A boy, reaching for a book, accidentally brushed against Lily's arm. Lily flinched so violently she nearly fell off her chair, a tiny, muffled cry escaping her lips before she clamped her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with a terror that seemed far disproportionate to the minor contact. The other children stared. Anna quickly intervened, calming the startled boy and gently reassuring Lily. But the intensity of Lily's reaction, the sheer panic in her eyes, lodged itself in Anna's mind. This was not normal. This was a child living in a state of constant, heightened fear. That evening, Anna couldn't shake the image of Lily's terrified face. She found herself pacing her small living room, Jasper weaving around her ankles, sensing her distress. The what-ifs tormented her. What if Lily was being hurt? What if the hoodie was hiding something terrible? The thought of waiting for more data points, as the official protocol sometimes seemed to demand, felt unbearable. She decided then that she had to do something more direct, however risky it might be. She couldn't bear the thought of failing this child. The next day, Anna chose her moment carefully. It was the end of the school day. Most of the children had already been dismissed, their happy shouts fading down the hallway. Lily was always one of the last to be picked up, often waiting a good 20 minutes after the final bell, a small, solitary figure by the classroom door. Anna approached her gently, kneeling to her eye level. "Lily," she began, her voice as soft as she could make it. "It's just us now. It's very warm in here, sweetheart. Would you let me just help you loosen your hood a little, so you can get some fresh air on your face?" Lily froze, her entire body going rigid. Her breathing became shallow, audible. She shook her head, a desperate, jerky movement, her small hands clutching the fabric at her neck as if it were a lifeline. Anna's heart ached. She saw the raw fear in the sliver of eyes visible beneath the brim of the hood. But she also saw something else, a flicker of desperation, a silent plea. Something inside Anna, a protective instinct stronger than any professional protocol, took over. "Just for a moment, Lily," she whispered, her hand moving slowly, telegraphing her intent. "Let's just see if we can make you a little more comfortable." And with infinite care, her heart pounding against her ribs, Anna reached out and gently, slowly, began to pull back the edge of the deep blue hood. The fabric yielded, and Anna Holloway froze, A strangled gasp escaped her lips, her hand flying to her own mouth to stifle a cry of pure, unadulterated horror. Concealed by the deep hood, wringing Lily's fragile neck and disappearing into her hairline, were a series of angry, purple-black bruises, stark and brutal against her pale skin. They were not accidental marks. Their placement, their varying shades of discoloration, spoke of repeated, deliberate injury. And then, as the hood fell away completely, Anna saw it, a small, almost perfectly circular burn mark, partially healed but still raw and pink, just behind Lily's left ear. It was the size of a cigarette tip. The cheerful classroom, with its colorful displays and whimsical decorations, suddenly felt like a chamber of horrors. The world tilted, sounds receded, and all Anna could see were those terrible marks, undeniable evidence of a cruelty she could barely comprehend. Lily, her secret exposed, began to tremble violently, a low, keening whimper starting deep in her chest. Her eyes squeezed shut as if bracing for a blow. Anna's training, her years of experience, her carefully constructed professional composure, it all shattered in that single, horrifying moment. Her mind reeled, a maelstrom of shock, fury, and a sickening, profound sorrow. The playful alphabet chart on the wall seemed to mock her. The happy drawings pinned to the bulletin board felt like a cruel joke. How could this be happening to this child, in this bright, supposedly safe space? Her first instinct was to pull Lily into her arms, to shield her from the world. But she knew she had to be careful to not frighten her further. With an effort that felt monumental, Anna forced herself to breathe, to think. She gently, her hands shaking, pulled the hood back up, not to hide the evidence, but to give Lily back her small, desperate shield for a moment. "Oh, Lily," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Sweetheart, it's okay. You're safe with me. You're safe now." But the words felt hollow even to her own ears, because Lily wasn't truly safe yet, not until the person responsible for this was stopped. Her mind raced. She had to call Mrs. Peterson immediately, and then the authorities. This was no longer a case of suspected neglect. This was clear, irrefutable evidence of severe physical abuse. The image of Ms. Jenkins' cold face, her harsh words to Lily in the car, flashed through Anna's mind. The aunt, could she be the perpetrator? Or was there someone else, even more monstrous, in Lily's life? Anna gently guided Lily to her own desk chair, her arm protectively around the child's trembling shoulders. "Stay right here with me, Lily," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the tremor that ran through her entire body. "I just need to make a very important phone call." She reached for her classroom phone, her fingers fumbling with the numbers, her gaze fixed on the small, hooded child who had suffered in silence for so long. The weight of what she had just seen, the terrible responsibility it carried, pressed down on her with crushing force. This was the moment everything changed, the moment quiet concern exploded into urgent, desperate action. Anna's call to Mrs. Peterson was brief and filled with a raw urgency that conveyed the gravity of the situation without needing elaborate detail. "Sarah, it's Anna. It's Lily. It's bad. Very bad. Get to my classroom now, please. And I think we need to call the police and Child Protective Services immediately." There was no hesitation in Mrs. Peterson's voice, only a grim understanding. "I'm on my way." While waiting, Anna sat beside Lily, speaking to her in low, soothing tones, though she doubted the child heard much beyond the roaring in her own ears. Anna noticed, with a fresh pang of horror, how Lily's small hands, peeking from the oversized sleeves, were covered in tiny, faded crescent-shaped scars, fingernail marks, as if she habitually dug her nails into her own palms. Each new detail was another stab to Anna's heart, another layer to the monstrous picture unfolding before her. Mrs. Peterson arrived within minutes, her usually composed face paling significantly as Anna, in hushed, clipped sentences, described what she had found beneath the hoodie. Together, they made the call to the authorities. The wait for the police and the CPS worker felt like an eternity, each tick of the classroom clock amplifying the tension. Anna tried to engage Lily gently, offering her a picture book, a glass of water. Lily accepted nothing, remaining a small, frozen statue, the hoodie pulled tight. When Officer Ramirez and Ms. Evans, the CPS social worker, arrived, they were professional, their expression somber but kind as Anna and Mrs. Peterson recounted the discovery. Ms. Evans, a woman with calm eyes and a gentle demeanor, knelt beside Lily. "Hello, Lily," she said softly. "My name is Carol, and I'm here to help you. Can you tell me who put those boo-boos on you?" Lily flinched at the word boo-boos and burrowed deeper into her hoodie, a tiny, almost inaudible whimper escaping her. It was clear she was too terrified to speak. Anna watched, her heart aching, feeling a desperate helplessness. The investigation was beginning, but the path to getting Lily to truly open up, to feel safe enough to reveal her tormentor, seemed impossibly long. Days turned into a week of painstaking, delicate work. Lily was placed in temporary emergency foster care, away from Ms. Jenkins, who, when questioned, vehemently denied any knowledge of the injuries. Claiming Lily was a clumsy child and prone to accidents, she even suggested Lily might be self-harming, a cruel deflection that made Anna's blood boil. The burn mark, however, was difficult for Ms. Jenkins to explain away. Her facade of concerned aunt was thin, and under the scrutiny of experienced investigators, it began to crumble. Anna, though not directly involved in the official investigation beyond her initial report, found herself consumed by Lily's case. She replayed every interaction, every fleeting observation, searching for missed clues. She remembered Ms. Jenkins' car, the battered state of it. She remembered Lily once drawing a picture, not of a sun or a flower like the other children, but of a dark, scribbled house with bars on the windows, a drawing she had quickly hidden when Anna approached. At the time, Anna had dismissed it as a child's macabre fantasy. Now it felt like a chilling cry for help. Anna made a point of visiting Lily at the Child Advocacy Center where she was being interviewed by specialists. These visits were short, supervised, but Anna felt they were crucial. She would bring a small, simple gift, a new coloring book, a brightly colored pencil, a soft, fluffy hair tie. During one visit, Lily, still mostly silent, was drawing. Anna sat beside her, not speaking, just offering a quiet, supportive presence. Lily was meticulously drawing a series of circles, then filling them in with angry red crayon. Suddenly, she paused, picked up a black crayon, and drew a crude stick figure next to the red circles. The figure had wild, spiky hair and a jagged, cruel mouth. Then, Lily looked up at Anna, her eyes wide and filled with a dawning terror, and she whispered, so faintly Anna almost didn't hear it, "The monster." It was the first time she had directly implicated anyone. "Who is the monster, Lily?" Anna asked gently. Lily just shook her head, her small body trembling, and began to furiously scribble over the drawing, obliterating the figure. It was a breakthrough, however small, but also a terrifying glimpse into the fear that held Lily captive. The personal stakes for Anna felt immense. She was deeply invested, her nights sleepless, her days shadowed by a constant worry for Lily's safety and well-being. Ms. Jenkins, it turned out, was not Lily's biological aunt, but a distant cousin of Lily's deceased mother, who had taken Lily in after her mother's overdose 6 months prior. She was overwhelmed, struggling with her own issues, and had, it seemed, taken out her frustrations on the silent, vulnerable child in her care. The monster, investigators began to suspect, might be Ms. Jenkins' abusive, live-in boyfriend, a man with a known history of violence, whom Ms. Jenkins had failed to mention. Anna, during one of her meticulous reviews of her own memories, recalled a day when Ms. Jenkins had picked Lily up. A man had been in the passenger seat of the battered car, a large, unkempt man with cold eyes and a cruel set of tattoos visible on his forearms. He hadn't looked at Anna, but had stared intently at Lily, a look that now, in retrospect, made Anna's skin crawl. This was the second micro-cameo, a fleeting image stored away that now screamed with significance. She immediately reported this to Ms. Evans. The pieces were slowly, horrifyingly, falling into place. The investigation intensified. Armed with this new information from Anna, and with Lily beginning to communicate in small, fragmented ways with the child forensic interviewer, often through drawings depicting a large, shadowy male figure and a smaller figure cowering. The authorities focused their attention on Ms. Jenkins' boyfriend, a man named Ray. His record showed prior arrests for assault. The net was closing. Anna felt a flicker of hope, but it was overshadowed by fear. What if they couldn't build a strong enough case? What if Lily was forced to return to that house? The emotional toll on Anna was immense. She found it hard to concentrate on her other students, her mind constantly drifting back to Lily, to the bruises, the burn, the terror in her eyes. She wrestled with guilt, wondering if she should have acted sooner, if she had missed earlier signs. Mrs. Peterson reassured her, "Anna, you did everything right. You saw something, you acted. You saved her," but the words offered little comfort against the weight of her own self-reproach. The investigation was like navigating a minefield, each discovery leading to a new potential threat, each small step forward fraught with the possibility of a devastating setback for Lily. The game-changing revelation came not from a dramatic confession, but from a painstaking search of Ms. Jenkins' apartment, authorized by a warrant. Tucked away in a kitchen drawer, beneath a pile of unpaid bills, investigators found a cheap, disposable lighter, the kind with a metal guard that, when heated, could easily match the circular burn mark behind Lily's ear. And in Ray's cluttered bedroom, they found a belt with a distinctive, heavy buckle that matched the pattern of some of the linear bruises documented on Lily's back and legs during her medical examination. The physical evidence was undeniable, horrifically concrete. Lily, when shown a photograph of the belt by the trained interviewer in a safe, neutral setting, had recoiled, her breath catching in a sob, and had whispered, "Ray's angry stick." The full horror of Lily's daily life was laid bare. A life of constant fear, punctuated by acts of brutal violence from Ray, with Ms. Jenkins either unwilling or unable to protect her. The stakes skyrocketed. There was now a clear and present danger, a specific perpetrator. A high-pressure countdown began, not explicitly stated, but felt by everyone involved. Ray was volatile, and Ms. Jenkins was clearly terrified of him as well. There was a real fear that if they knew the extent of the investigation, they might flee or worse, further harm Lily if they somehow regained access to her, however unlikely that seemed now. The tactical planning for Ray's arrest and for securing Lily's long-term safety became paramount. Anna met again with Ms. Evans and Officer Ramirez. They explained the next steps. Ray would be arrested. Ms. Jenkins would likely face charges of child endangerment and neglect. Lily would remain in specialized foster care while the legal proceedings unfolded. Anna's role now was to be a stable, supportive presence for Lily, someone the child trusted, as she navigated the terrifying and confusing aftermath. The conversation was heavy with the grim realities of the justice system, but also underscored by a fierce determination to see justice done for Lily. Anna left the meeting feeling a mixture of trepidation and a steely resolve. The end of this particular nightmare was in sight, but the confrontation, the final removal of the threat, still lay ahead. Her fear for Lily was a constant hum beneath the surface, but her determination to see her safe was a burning fire. The climax arrived not with a dramatic showdown at the school, but with a quiet, efficient police operation at Ms. Jenkins' rundown apartment complex early one morning. Anna was not present, but Ms. Evans called her later that day to update her. Ray had been arrested without incident, taken by surprise. Ms. Jenkins, confronted with the overwhelming evidence against him and her own culpability, had broken down, finally admitting to the abuse Ray had inflicted on Lily and her own terror-stricken inaction. Lily was safe, officially removed from their custody, her future now in the hands of the child welfare system. The immediate threat was neutralized. Anna listened to Ms. Evans, a wave of profound relief washing over her, so intense it left her weak-kneed. She thought of Lily, small and fragile, finally free from her tormentors. The emotional cost of the past few weeks had been enormous, a constant thrum of anxiety and fear, but in that moment, hearing that Ray was in custody and Lily was truly, definitively safe, it all felt worth it. The decisive turning point had been reached. The monster was caged. Anna leaned her head against the cool glass of her classroom window, watching the autumn leaves drift down outside, the world suddenly seeming a little brighter, a little less menacing. She let out a long, shuddering breath, a sound that carried weeks of pent-up tension and fear. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow this time, but of overwhelming, cleansing relief. Her body trembled, a physical release from the constant state of high alert she had been living in. The fight for Lily's immediate safety was over. Ms. Evans had told her on the phone, "Anna, what you did, finding those injuries, pushing for action. It probably saved Lily's life, or at least saved her from years more of this horror." Because of this case, the district is already fast-tracking enhanced training for all staff on identifying subtle signs of trauma and abuse. They're also setting up a new, anonymous reporting channel directly to CPS liaisons. "Your courage has already started a ripple of change here." Anna absorbed the words, a small measure of comfort in the emotional storm. A few weeks later, Ms. Evans arranged for Anna to visit Lily at her new foster home. It was a cheerful house with a sunny yellow door and a small garden, worlds away from the grim apartment she had endured. Lily was still quiet, still shy, but the haunted, terrified look in her eyes was slowly, almost imperceptibly, beginning to recede. She was wearing a bright pink t-shirt, no hoodie in sight. When she saw Anna, a tiny, hesitant smile touched her lips. She walked over to Anna and, without a word, handed her a drawing. It was a picture of a girl with a big smile, standing under a bright yellow sun, surrounded by colorful flowers. In the corner, she had drawn a small heart. Then, Lily reached up and gently touched Anna's hand. In that small, simple gesture, that tentative, brave smile, Anna understood. She hadn't just helped stop the darkness that had enveloped Lily. She had helped preserve a future, a chance for sunlight and laughter. The first, fragile seeds of healing and profound trust were, at that very moment, being sown. Anna knew, with absolute certainty, that Lily's journey to recovery would be long, arduous, and filled with challenges. The scars, both visible and invisible, would take years to fade, perhaps never entirely disappearing. But now, finally, the foundation for safety, for genuine healing, had been firmly laid. The slow, painstaking work of rebuilding a shattered childhood could begin. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the possibility of warmth, of joy, of a future unmarred by constant fear, felt real and attainable for Lily. Anna returned to her classroom at Oak Haven Elementary with a renewed sense of purpose. The familiar scent of chalk dust and old books now carried a different weight, a deeper meaning. Every child's face held a story, and she felt more attuned than ever to the subtle nuances, the unspoken words, the silent pleas that might lie hidden beneath a brave smile or a boisterous laugh. Her quiet cottage still awaited her each evening, but the silence felt different now, less like emptiness and more like a space for quiet reflection, for gratitude. She had been given a stark reminder of the darkness that could exist in the world, but also of the profound power of compassion, of one person daring to look closer, to act. A few months later, Ms. Evans called Anna. Lily was thriving in her foster home, she reported. She was talking more, even laughing sometimes. And she kept asking about Ms. Holloway, her teacher friend, Anna. Ms. Evans said, her voice warm, "Lily's foster parents are wonderful, but she needs consistent, positive connections from her past, people who represent safety to her. Would you be open to becoming an official mentor for her? Regular visits, someone she knows she can count on, someone who was there for her at her worst." Anna looked at Lily's drawing, now framed and sitting on her bedside table, the smiling girl under the bright sun. A warmth spread through her, a sense of a new, unexpected path unfolding. "Yes," Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I would love that more than anything." It was the hopeful, luminous beginning of a new chapter, a bond forged in darkness, now reaching steadily, joyfully, towards the light. That evening, Anna sat on her porch swing, Jasper purring contentedly in her lap, watching the stars begin to prick the darkening sky. She held Lily's drawing in her hand, tracing the outline of the smiling girl. A profound sense of earned peace settled over her, a quiet satisfaction that warmed her from the inside out. She felt the tangible beginning of a new connection, a new purpose, a quiet joy in the simple, powerful act of caring. Thanks for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you next time. When a second-grade teacher notices a new student who refuses to remove her jacket despite the warm classroom and playground temperatures, something about her nervous behavior and occasional winces of discomfort begins to trouble her. What started as a minor classroom management issue would soon reveal a heart-wrenching reality that would change not just one child's life, but an entire community's approach to supporting vulnerable families. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you believe that sometimes the smallest observations can lead to the most important interventions, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. She couldn't have known that her gentle persistence would uncover a truth that had been hidden beneath a zipped-up jacket for months, until the moment she finally saw what lay underneath and everything suddenly made sense. Catherine Mitchell had been teaching second grade at Pinewood Elementary for nearly 8 years. At 34, her patient demeanor and genuine connection with children had earned her a reputation as one of the most beloved educators in the small suburban school. With her warm smile, curly brown hair typically gathered in a casual bun, and expressive hazel eyes that radiated kindness, Ms. Mitchell, Ms. Cat, to her students, had created a classroom where even the most hesitant children eventually blossomed. She believed firmly that emotional safety was as important as academic rigor, and she structured her teaching around building relationships first, confident that learning would naturally follow when children felt secure and valued. Her classroom was a vibrant space, with colorful reading corners, science exploration stations, and walls adorned with both student work and inspiring messages that changed monthly. Unlike the identical desks arranged in rows that characterized many classrooms, Catherine had created flexible seating options: wobble stools, standing desks, and comfortable floor cushions, recognizing that different children learned best in different environments. The room smelled faintly of essential oils from the diffuser she used to create a calming atmosphere, and gentle instrumental music often played softly during independent work time. Catherine lived in a cozy 2-bedroom home about 15 minutes from the school, sharing the space with her rescue cat, Milo, and an impressive collection of houseplants that benefited from her nurturing nature. Though not originally from the small town of Pinewood, she had put down roots in the community after accepting her first teaching position there, gradually becoming involved in local literacy initiatives and neighborhood improvement projects. Her weekends were often spent volunteering at the community garden or attending her students' sports games and recitals, believing that seeing children in their element outside school helped her better understand them as whole people rather than just students. Principal Eleanor Washington valued Catherine's contributions beyond academic instruction. "You have a gift for seeing the whole child," she had noted during Catherine's most recent evaluation. "The way you notice and address their emotional needs alongside their educational ones has transformed outcomes for some of our most challenged students." Catherine had accepted the praise graciously, though privately she considered this holistic approach fundamental to effective teaching rather than a special talent. School social worker Jamal Harris had become one of Catherine's closest colleagues at Pinewood. They frequently collaborated on supporting students with emotional or behavioral challenges, with Catherine often being the first to notice subtle changes that warranted deeper attention. Their professional partnership had evolved into a friendship built on shared educational philosophies and complementary approaches to student welfare. "Between your daily observations and my resources," Jamal often remarked, "we make a pretty good team for catching kids before they fall through the cracks." There had been discussions at recent staff meetings about the increasing economic pressures facing families in their district. The closure of the timber mill that had employed nearly a quarter of the town's workforce had created ripple effects throughout the community: more families applying for free lunch programs, increased housing insecurity, and rising stress levels that inevitably affected the children. The school had been working to expand its support services, though limited resources meant these efforts often fell short of the growing need. One Wednesday afternoon in late October, Catherine had encountered an unfamiliar woman speaking with Principal Washington near the front office. The woman, who she later learned was Dr. Lucia Ramirez, the newly appointed director of the county's Family Support Initiative, had greeted her with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about the challenges facing Pinewood students and families. There was something refreshingly practical in her approach that resonated with Catherine's own belief that schools needed to address basic needs before expecting academic achievement. "We're trying to create more integrated support systems," Dr. Ramirez had explained. "When schools, social services, and healthcare providers work in isolation, vulnerable families fall through the gaps. But when we coordinate our efforts and share information appropriately, we can address problems before they become crises." This philosophy aligned perfectly with Catherine's own observations about preventive intervention, and she'd left the brief conversation feeling cautiously hopeful about potential new partnerships that might benefit her struggling students. Autumn had settled over the small town of Pinewood, bringing crisp mornings that gave way to pleasantly warm afternoons typical of the region's temperate climate. The elementary school, a well-maintained single-story building surrounded by towering pine trees that gave the school its name, served approximately 350 students from diverse socio-economic backgrounds. Inside, classrooms buzzed with the established routines of a school year well underway, the initial adjustment period having given way to the comfortable rhythm of learning. It was during this season of settling in that Catherine first became concerned about Emma Sullivan, a 7-year-old girl who had transferred to Pinewood just after the school year began. The child was small for her age, with delicate features, wide blue eyes that seemed both observant and guarded, and blonde hair that often looked in need of a good brushing. Her academic performance was inconsistent, showing flashes of brilliance in reading and art but struggling to maintain focus during math and science. Her file indicated she lived with her grandmother, having recently relocated to Pinewood under circumstances not fully explained in the transfer documents. But nothing could prepare Catherine for the mystery that would unfold around Emma's refusal to remove her jacket. The first time Catherine really took notice was during a particularly warm October day when the classroom temperature had risen high enough to make even short sleeves uncomfortable. While other children naturally shed their outer layers, Emma remained firmly zipped into a faded blue jacket that appeared at least one size too small, the sleeves barely reaching her wrists. When Catherine suggested gently that she might be more comfortable without it, the girl had simply shaken her head, arms wrapped protectively around herself. "I'm not hot," she'd insisted, though beads of sweat were visible on her forehead. "I like my jacket." Catherine hadn't pushed the issue that day, recognizing that some children developed attachments to specific clothing items that provided psychological comfort. However, as the pattern continued through increasingly warm classroom temperatures, her concern grew. Unlike typical comfort objects that children sometimes outgrew or occasionally set aside, Emma's jacket remained a constant, non-negotiable presence regardless of activity or temperature. After 2 weeks of observation, Catherine noticed additional concerning patterns. Emma arrived at school early each morning, often before the building officially opened, waiting quietly by the front door regardless of weather. She hoarded food from the cafeteria, sometimes slipping items into her jacket pockets when she thought no one was watching. Most troublingly, she flinched visibly at loud noises or sudden movements, her body tensing in a way that suggested an expectation of harm rather than simple startlement. "I'm worried about Emma Sullivan," Catherine mentioned to Jamal during one of their regular check-in meetings. "There's a constellation of behaviors that suggests something beyond normal adjustment issues for a transfer student." She detailed her observations, the refusal to remove the too small jacket despite obvious physical discomfort, the food hoarding, the early arrivals, the hypervigilance to potential threats, and shared her growing concern that these might indicate an unstable home situation. "Has she mentioned anything about her home life?" Jamal asked, making notes in Emma's file. "Almost nothing," Catherine replied. "When I've asked casual questions about her grandmother or their new home, she gives minimal, clearly rehearsed responses. It's fine. Grandma's nice, it feels scripted rather than authentic. Have you had any contact with the grandmother?" "That's another red flag," Catherine said. "She didn't attend back-to-school night, hasn't responded to my welcome email, and sent a note saying she couldn't make parent-teacher conferences due to work conflicts. There's been zero engagement despite multiple outreach attempts." Jamal nodded thoughtfully. "The transfer records are surprisingly sparse. We know there was a recent custody change from mother to grandmother, but the documentation is minimal. I've been trying to connect with the previous school for more information, but they've been slow to respond. They discussed potential next steps, including a home visit and possibly reaching out to community partners who might already be working with the family. However, both agreed that building more trust with Emma herself might provide the most immediate insights into her situation. I'll increase my one-on-one time with her, Catherine decided. Maybe during lunch or recess breaks when it's less structured. If there's something she needs to tell us, she'll need to feel safe enough first. Over the next week, Catherine created natural opportunities for connection with Emma, inviting her to help organize classroom libraries during recess, which the girl readily accepted, seeming relieved to avoid the playground. Eating lunch with her at a quiet table away from the cafeteria chaos, and pairing her with a kind, mature reading buddy who might provide peer support. Throughout these interactions, Catherine maintained a warm but not pushy presence, allowing Emma to set the pace for disclosure while watching carefully for additional clues about her circumstances. What she observed only deepened her concern. Though not obviously malnourished, Emma ate with the rapid, protective hunching that suggested food insecurity, consuming everything offered as quickly as possible while constantly glancing around as if expecting it to be taken away. Her academic skills showed significant gaps despite obvious intelligence, suggesting disrupted previous schooling. Most tellingly, when Catherine occasionally touched her shoulder or arm in ordinary teacher-student interactions, the girl would freeze momentarily, her body tensing before consciously relaxing, a response pattern often seen in children accustomed to unexpected negative physical contact. But nothing could have prepared Catherine for what she would discover when Emma finally trusted her enough to reveal what lay beneath her jacket. The revelation came during a quiet Friday afternoon art session. Catherine had set up watercolor painting stations around the classroom, with students rotating through different activities. Emma had shown particular enthusiasm for art since her arrival, and Catherine had deliberately created a station in a quiet corner where the girl could work with minimal disruption. As Emma became absorbed in her painting, a surprisingly skilled rendering of a small house with exaggerated locks on the door, she grew less conscious of her surroundings, focusing intently on her work. The classroom was warm from the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, and Catherine noticed Emma growing increasingly uncomfortable, wiping sweat from her forehead while trying to maintain her concentration on the delicate brushwork. After several minutes of obvious discomfort, the girl glanced around quickly, apparently confirming that other students were engaged elsewhere, and cautiously unzipped her jacket just a few inches to cool off. Catherine, arranging supplies nearby while giving Emma her space, caught a glimpse of what the jacket had been concealing, not a normal t-shirt or blouse, but what appeared to be a thin nightgown, worn and stained, completely inappropriate for school or the season. More concerning was the brief glimpse of protruding collarbones and upper ribs suggesting significant undernourishment not readily apparent when the child was fully clothed. Maintaining her composure to avoid alarming Emma, Catherine continued organizing materials while processing this disturbing observation. The inappropriate underclothing combined with signs of malnutrition suggested serious neglect, possibly a situation where the grandmother was unable or unwilling to provide basic necessities like proper clothing and adequate food. The jacket, rather than a comfort object as Catherine had initially assumed, appeared to be a concealment strategy, hiding evidence of neglect from authorities who might intervene. Catherine knew she needed to see more to properly document her concerns, but forcing the issue might frighten Emma into complete withdrawal. Instead, she created a gentle opportunity for further disclosure. "That painting is beautiful, Emma," she said, approaching the girl's table with genuine admiration. "You've captured so much detail in the house. I notice you're getting pretty warm while you work. Since it's just us in this corner, would you be more comfortable taking your jacket off for a bit while you finish? I promise you can put it right back on before rejoining the class." Emma hesitated, conflict evident in her expression. Physical discomfort battling with what appeared to be fear of revealing what lay beneath. After a moment, she spoke so softly Catherine had to lean closer to hear. "If I show you, you can't tell anyone. Grandma says they'll take me away if people see." This statement, the classic language of a child who had been coached to conceal neglect or abuse, confirmed Catherine's worst fears while presenting an ethical dilemma. As a mandated reporter, she could not promise confidentiality about information relevant to a child's safety, yet Emma clearly needed reassurance before feeling safe enough to reveal her situation. "Emma," Catherine said gently, "I care about making sure you're safe and have everything you need. Sometimes when grown-ups tell kids to keep secrets about things like food or clothing or how they're being treated, it's because the grown-ups need help too. If you show me, I'll make sure that any help that comes is for both you and your grandmother, not to separate you." This careful framing, acknowledging the child's likely fear of family separation while emphasizing support rather than punishment, seemed to resonate with Emma. After another moment's hesitation, she slowly unzipped the jacket fully, revealing what Catherine had glimpsed and more. Beneath the jacket was indeed a nightgown, thin, stained, and far too small, with torn straps repaired with safety pins. Emma's arms were thin to the point of frailty, with her shoulders and collarbones prominently visible. Most concerning were several fading bruises on her upper arms, the distinctive finger mark pattern suggesting she had been grabbed forcefully on multiple occasions. Catherine maintained her composure through years of professional training, though her heart raced at this evidence of both neglect and potential physical abuse. "Thank you for trusting me, Emma," she said calmly. "Can you tell me a little about your clothes? Do you have other things to wear besides this nightgown?" Emma shook her head slightly. "Grandma says clothes are expensive. I had some when I lived with Mom, but I grew out of them. This is my mom's old nightgown from when she was little." She hesitated before adding, "I have one more for when this one's really dirty." "And the bruises on your arms?" Catherine asked gently. "Can you tell me how those happened?" Emma's eyes dropped to her painting. "Sometimes Grandma gets mad when her medicine makes her fuzzy. She doesn't mean it. She forgets the next day." This additional information, suggesting the grandmother might be experiencing cognitive issues, possibly medication-related or indicating substance abuse, added another layer of complexity to the situation. This might not be willful neglect, but rather a case of an elderly caregiver with her own significant challenges attempting to raise a child without adequate support. "Emma, you've been very brave showing me this," Catherine said. "I'd like to talk to some people who can help make sure you have proper clothes, plenty of food, and that both you and your grandmother have the support you need. Would that be okay?" Fear flashed across the child's face. "You promised they wouldn't take me away." "And I meant it," Catherine assured her. "My goal is to keep you with your grandmother, but make sure you both have what you need. Sometimes families need extra help, and that's what we want to provide." After helping Emma zip her jacket back up, recognizing the psychological protection it provided, Catherine arranged for the teaching assistant to supervise the class while she accompanied Emma to Jamal's office. There, with the social worker's specialized expertise, they gently gathered more information about Emma's living situation. The details that emerged painted a heartbreaking picture. Following her mother's incarceration for drug-related offenses 6 months earlier, Emma had been placed with her maternal grandmother, 72-year-old Margaret Sullivan. The grandmother, suffering from early dementia and numerous health issues, lived on a fixed income in a small apartment without adequate heating. While not intentionally abusive, her declining cognitive function left her unable to consistently meet Emma's basic needs. The physical grabbing occurred during episodes of confusion and frustration rather than deliberate cruelty. Most concerningly, there appeared to be minimal oversight of the placement. The overburdened child welfare system in their previous county had approved the grandmother as kinship care without thorough assessment of her capacity, and the case had effectively been closed once custody was transferred. The move to Pinewood, prompted by eviction from their previous housing, had further disrupted what limited support systems had been in place. As mandated reporters, both Catherine and Jamal were obligated to contact Child Protective Services regarding their observations of neglect and physical marks. However, they approached this responsibility with nuance, emphasizing the need for family support rather than punitive intervention or removal. This appears to be a situation where both the child and caregiver need significant assistance, Jamal explained in his report, not a case of willful abuse requiring separation. The grandmother's intent appears to be positive, but her capacity is severely limited by health and cognitive issues. Catherine added her detailed observations, including Emma's clear attachment to her grandmother despite the difficult circumstances and her fear of being separated from her only remaining family. Their thoughtful, comprehensive report helped shape the intervention that followed, prioritizing family preservation with appropriate supports over removal and placement in the foster system. The response from Child Protective Services was encouragingly collaborative. Rather than immediately removing Emma, they implemented an emergency support plan while conducting a more thorough assessment. This included arranging for home-delivered meals, emergency clothing vouchers, and a priority application for subsidized housing with functional heating. A geriatric assessment was scheduled for the grandmother to evaluate her health needs and cognitive status, with consideration of additional in-home support services if she was deemed able to maintain custody with assistance. For Emma's immediate well-being, Catherine worked with Jamal to access the school's emergency clothing fund, discreetly providing several sets of appropriate clothing that the girl could keep in a special cubby and change into upon arrival at school. The cafeteria staff was alerted to ensure Emma received extra portions and snacks to address her nutritional needs, and the school nurse began monitoring her weight and overall health weekly. The weeks that followed brought significant improvements to Emma's situation. The comprehensive assessment confirmed that her grandmother suffered from moderate dementia alongside several untreated health conditions, but with proper medical intervention and support services, she could potentially continue as Emma's primary caregiver. Adult Protective Services became involved alongside child welfare, creating a coordinated care plan that addressed both individuals' needs while preserving their family bond. Most transformative was the involvement of Dr. Ramirez's Family Support Initiative, which provided the case coordination that had been so notably absent. Through their integrated service model, Emma and her grandmother were connected with appropriate medical care, regular meal delivery, transportation assistance, and an in-home aide who visited several times weekly to help with household management and ensure Emma's basic needs were consistently met. For Catherine, the weeks following her discovery were both affirming of her professional instincts and deeply educational. She had noticed what others had missed, persisted when initial approaches yielded limited information, and advocated for a response that addressed the underlying issues rather than simply removing a child from a flawed but loving home. "You quite literally changed the trajectory of that child's life," Principal Washington told her during a follow-up meeting. "Without your observation and intervention, who knows how long this would have continued or how much worse it might have become." By mid-December, approximately 6 weeks after Catherine had first glimpsed what lay beneath Emma's jacket, the transformation in the child was remarkable. With proper nutrition, her face had filled out, and though still slender, the dangerous boniness had given way to a healthier appearance. She arrived at school in clean, appropriate clothing, though Catherine noticed she still sometimes wore the jacket over them, now seemingly out of habit rather than necessity. Most significant was the change in Emma's demeanor. As her basic needs were consistently met, her natural intelligence and creativity flourished. She participated more actively in class discussions, formed tentative friendships with classmates, and her academic performance steadily improved as she could focus on learning rather than survival. The hypervigilance that had characterized her early weeks at Pinewood gradually diminished, replaced by the more typical attentiveness of an engaged second grader. During the school's winter concert in late December, Catherine watched with tears in her eyes as Emma performed with her class, wearing a new holiday sweater provided by the Family Support Program. In the audience sat her grandmother, now properly medicated and supported by a companion from Elder Services who helped her attend this important event. The elderly woman's face shone with pride as she watched her granddaughter sing, a moment of joy that might never have happened without the coordinated intervention prompted by Catherine's observation. After the performance, Emma rushed to her grandmother, who embraced her with clear affection despite her frailty. Catherine approached them carefully, introducing herself in person for the first time. "Emma is doing wonderfully in class," she told the grandmother, who appeared much more present and aware than Catherine had expected based on the case reports. "Her reading has improved dramatically, and she has a real talent for art." "She's always been a smart girl," Margaret Sullivan replied, her voice stronger than her fragile appearance suggested. "I tried my best, after her mother got into trouble. I just couldn't keep up with everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was afraid to ask for help. Thought they'd just take her away and that would kill me for sure. I'm so glad that didn't happen, Catherine said sincerely. Emma clearly loves you very much, and now you both have the support you deserve. The elderly woman reached out a trembling hand to grasp Catherine's. The social lady told me it was Emma's teacher who saw something was wrong but made sure we stayed together. That was you, wasn't it? Catherine nodded, momentarily too moved for words. Thank you, the grandmother said simply, the two words carrying the weight of a family preserved rather than separated, of dignity maintained while needs were met. The ripple effects of Emma's case extended far beyond her individual situation. Dr. Ramirez used it as a model for her integrated service approach, demonstrating how coordination between education, healthcare, and social services could effectively address complex family needs while avoiding unnecessary family separation. The school district implemented enhanced training for all staff on recognizing signs of neglect alongside more obvious abuse indicators, with Catherine asked to help develop the curriculum based on her experience. Most significantly, the case highlighted critical gaps in the oversight of kinship care placements, situations where children were placed with relatives rather than foster homes following parental inability to provide care. This led to policy changes at the county level, ensuring that grandparents and other relative caregivers received thorough assessment and support services rather than simply being approved and then left without assistance. By spring, approximately 5 months after Catherine had first glimpsed what lay beneath Emma's jacket, the transformation in both child and grandmother was remarkable. Through proper medical treatment and support, Margaret Sullivan's cognitive function had stabilized, and while she would always need some assistance, she was now a much more capable caregiver. Emma had blossomed academically and socially, making friends and participating fully in school activities with growing confidence. During a parent-teacher conference in April, Catherine was struck by the contrast between the grandmother she met now and the frightened, confused woman described in the initial case reports. With proper medication, nutrition, and support, Margaret Sullivan engaged meaningfully in discussion about Emma's progress, asking appropriate questions and taking notes about ways to support her learning at home. "We've been reading together every night," she told Catherine proudly. "My eyes aren't what they used to be, but Emma helps me with the words I can't make out. The home helper says it's good for both of us." This collaboration, grandmother and granddaughter supporting each other's needs while receiving appropriate external assistance, represented exactly the kind of family preservation outcome that Catherine had hoped for when making her initial report. Rather than being separated due to circumstances largely beyond their control, this family unit had been strengthened through targeted intervention. The final affirmation of this successful approach came unexpectedly during the last week of school. Emma arrived in Catherine's classroom carrying a carefully wrapped package, which she presented with shy pride. "Grandma and I made this for you," she explained as Catherine opened it to find a beautiful hand-knitted scarf in vibrant blues and purples. "She taught me how to knit. She used to make things all the time before she got sick, and now she remembers how again." Accompanying the scarf was a card featuring Emma's distinctive artwork, a detailed drawing of herself standing beside her grandmother in front of a small but cheerful house, both figures smiling beneath a bright sun. Inside, in careful childish handwriting, was a message that brought tears to Catherine's eyes. "Thank you for seeing me when I was hiding. You helped both of us when we didn't know how to ask. Love, Emma and Grandma Margaret too." The grandmother had added her own note. "You saw beyond the jacket to the need underneath. Because of you, I got the help I needed to be the grandmother Emma deserves." Some angels wear teaching badges. As the school year concluded and Catherine prepared to send her second graders on to third grade, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple observation about a child's reluctance to remove her jacket. What could easily have been dismissed as a quirky preference or stubborn behavior had instead been recognized as a potential indicator of something more serious, leading to intervention that preserved a family while ensuring safety and well-being. The following September, as Catherine welcomed a new class of second graders, she carried with her a deeper commitment to looking beyond behaviors to their potential causes. Emma, now in third grade just down the hall, would occasionally stop by to share artwork or book recommendations, no longer hiding beneath an oversized jacket, but moving confidently through the school in appropriate clothing that reflected the proper care she now received. Recovery hadn't been instant for Emma or her grandmother. The physical signs of neglect had improved relatively quickly with proper nutrition and medical care, but the emotional wounds or the fear of separation, the shame about their circumstances, the trauma of instability, required ongoing support and healing. The systems, too, had changed: new coordination, better oversight, increased resources. Small but significant steps toward ensuring that other families would not struggle alone until crisis point, that other children might receive help before having to hide their reality beneath clothing too heavy for the weather. The story that had begun with the teacher's concern about a jacket had transformed into something unexpected, not just an intervention that helped one child and her elderly grandmother, but a catalyst for community-wide changes that would benefit many vulnerable families. As Catherine arranged her classroom for the new school year, she kept Emma's card pinned to her bulletin board as a reminder of why looking beyond behavior to its causes was perhaps the most important skill any educator could develop. Not an ending, but a new beginning for Emma, for her healing grandmother, and for a community more attuned to the complex needs of kinship care families. A reminder that healing is possible when caring professionals pay attention to the small details that speak volumes, and when systems respond not just with judgment, but with practical support for those struggling to provide care despite their own limitations. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.